pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence for those that have gone before us and those that are in different stages of illness and sickness. Thank you. Okay, so this is our monthly OACM meeting, which is our project update meeting, and I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Sutter.
Thanks and good evening, everyone. A few new faces here from some of the past meetings that I've been here with. So what we have to talk about today is we put together an agenda. I first want to talk a little bit about design and the approval process and update. I'd like to talk then about some of the bidding and the bidding update, the potential for some contract awards, and then open up to any questions there might be. All right, so first I see Caitlin from Wendell Architects is remote. And I'm going to ask Caitlin, if Caitlin, would you mind please giving an update on the design and approval and where we are with the town?
Sure thing. So we received over 80 comments from the third-party reviewer that the town has hired to review our project documents. We submitted the response, so each comment was reviewed and responded by the applicable discipline from our design team. And then also as a result of some of the comments, we made edits to some of the design documents, as well as the specifications. So the responses to all of the comments were submitted last week, and all of the revised documents were submitted this afternoon. So right now, with respect to the permitting process, the third-party reviewer is reviewing our responses and submission. We complied with all of the, about 90% of the revisions that were requested. There were a couple that we were able to get ahead of with respect to classification of different space. So there was some communication back and forth, so we made things go a little smoother. And so right now, the timing of the approval and the permit is in the town and the reviewer's hands, but hopefully it should be pretty soon. There was nothing earth-shattering with respect to the questions that came through and any of the comments that we addressed.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Caitlin. I just want to also note to everybody who's here is that approval process and the permit are two different things. The town is going to give us an approval on the plan approval, but they won't give us a permit until after the awards of the contracts are made. They have to provide their insurances and their bonds, and there's various pre-construction related items that they have to take care of here on the site with the town before they'll issue a permit.
And playing devil's advocate, if the town withholds its approval because it has an issue with, I don't know, a 6-inch pipe over a 5-inch pipe, just making something up. What does that do if you've already awarded bids? And the bids have to be reworked because the town is insisting it has to be X when it was bid basis Y.
So first thing is that they haven't indicated any of that to us.
Well, no, but Kevin, I'm sorry, but whether or not that they have, but what happens if?
Well, if that happens, then we'll just modify the contract drawings to what it is that they want to do. And then we just offer a change order to the contractor if there's a change in the scope that increases the price. Or the other option is we can eliminate that altogether, or maybe it's a credit. I don't. But you know, I can't. Those things I won't know until it actually happens. But there are options in order to get around. Okay. All right. Thank you for your questions. Are there any other questions in regards to the design or any approval update? If not, I'll move on to the next part.
I just have a quick one regarding my 25 questions I submitted. Have those all been taken into account as far as the plan, town, and the third-party review?
I can answer that to some degree. Mary, I have your questions, and 90% of them I have answered. I haven't sent it out to you, because again, it's 90%. I didn't want to send out incomplete. So I know it's taking time.
It's unacceptable. Dwight.
This is not part of the OACM right now, but I appreciate your concept, your question, and they will be answered. in
Just
short order.
briefly, the reason after reviewing the plans, which were just recently given to the firefighters, which is absolutely disgrace, because they're the ones that are gonna be dealing with the firehouse for decades to come.
Mhm.
I had some issues about the actual plan itself, financial issues regarding the plans of possible extra costs and financial issues. That was 2 months ago. And as a matter of fact, Dwight, one of the questions regarding the bond, I asked when there was snow on the ground. There was no response, there was no response to my letter, and I foiled it, and there's still no response, and that's unacceptable.
The FOIL process is for documents, Barry,
Right, but
Okay.
my questions were 2 months ago.
and I told you I've got about 90% of them answered. I have other questions from other people. I'm working on them as well. It's a process, and I'm working. It's not something I can just go to the encyclopedia and look up the answer. So I apologize for
completely
that.
agree with that, and I appreciate that.
So let's move forward. I appreciate your comments. I'm not going to dismiss them. I'm fully aware of them, and we will work towards
My
answering.
big question is, if issues come up, or questions I raise, or Paul, or Chief, or anybody else, and there are additional costs, where is that money coming from?
Thank you. I think we will be answering that in short order. Kevin?
Well, if you give me a period to recover, I'm going.
No,
And
absolutely
I
not.
think it's.
Don't even think that. It's
I think it's a
absolutely,
disgrace.
sorry you did. Kevin, please.
Okay, so, there has been some things that have happened over the course of the past couple of months. So I want to make sure that everybody's up to date with them. We have open bids on May 20th. That was the original bid date for the project. And we received bids for all the contracts except for plumbing. We received multiple bids on mechanical, on general construction, on electrical. We received one bid on sprinkler. And so we went out to rebid for the plumbing on June 20, and we recently opened that on June 28th, which was just before the holiday. And we put together a bid tabulation sheet based on those lowest responsible bidders, right? The lowest bidders. And we're projecting that there is an overage in the base bid. And I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but the second floor fit out space was an alternate because we were concerned about price, and rightfully so. And so, but we included the numbers in the contractor's bids. And we have them. So if the project was just awarded as a base bid, just a base bid, phase one, we are $569,354 over budget. If we award the base bid plus the alternate one, which was phase two, which is the finishing of the second floor.
Is this for the plumbing? I'm sorry.
This is for everything. This is the entire project cost. Because I think the last time we were here, there was some questions about, well, what is the whole project cost, right? And so I had that information tonight. If we award the base plus alternate one, which is the finishing of the entire finishing of the second floor, we'll be over budget by $1,950,185. Excuse me, just under $2 million. Okay. All right. So if you take out the base, you can figure out what the second floor finishing costs from that number. Okay.
When you give a pause, Kevin, I've got a couple of questions related to that.
Shoot.
So for starters, when the first meeting that we had after the bids were opened, There was a very general discussion, no names were mentioned, and you had specifically said the lowest bidder would not be your first choice. Those are your exact words. And through a little research, I think it came out, it has to be, that contractor needs to be watched very closely. There've been some complaints from other people that they worked with in the past. So is the 500 some odd thousand overage based upon that particular bidder or the next highest bidder?
Good question. I believe that I said that they're not the best, but they're not the worst.
Right, but you did specific, because I took pause on this when you said they would not be your first choice.
They're not the best and they're not the worst. We have worked with them before. They have experience in firehouses. They have done work of similar size and scope. See, here's the rub. This is not a private project, it's a public project. So we have to abide by the general municipal law. And that says that we have to hire the lowest responsible bidder.
Lowest qualified responsible bidder.
But if there's concerns.
Right.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, I will agree with that. Because that language has been modified over the years.
So if there are concerns that either the board or yourself as the PM have about a vendor, is that cause enough to say, you know what, let's spend the extra $50,000 and go with the next highest bidder so that we have this comfort level? Because I look at it from this perspective. If I need work done on my car and I've got a choice of two mechanics, one guy who, I've got to stand over his shoulder to make sure that every bolt is tightened, or taking it to someone else who I know is going to do the best job. I can leave it there for the day and pick it up at the end, but I'm going to pay a little more. I'm going to go to option number 2. And when we're talking about such a major endeavor, $15–16 million, and the difference between the two lowest bids are $50–60,000, Paul, isn't it more fiscally responsible for us to look towards that next highest bidder, to find the rationale to say, we have concerns because of X, Y, and Z, and then make our decision basis that? Then my second question is the 500 some odd thousand overage. That's strictly for building the structure. That still does not include gear racks, hose dryer, cascade system, furnishings for the standby room, the furnishings that will be needed for the radio room when the radio room is moved. So what is that? Let's call it 600,000, since the high 500s. What is that true number that we're short?
So first question, short answer is the short answer is that the way that the law is written, it's very complicated and difficult to find a contractor non-responsive. We did our due diligence. We checked their references. They provided a qualification statement. We went through their EMR. We went through their OSHA. We checked if there was any outstanding lawsuits or issues associated with any public works projects. They didn't have any of that. So we're very limited as to what we can say that they are a non-responsive bidder. If we were to challenge that and you say, okay, well, listen, they aren't the best, they don't have the best management in their company, but they can get the job done. We still don't want to use them. We want to go to the next number 2 guy. There's no, the contractor will most likely file an Article 78 and send this whole thing to the courts. And then the courts will decide whether or not the board has made a legal choice in finding that lower bid non-responsive. And in my experience, because I'm not a lawyer, and I want to just put that out there right away, not a lawyer, but in my experience, most of the time, the courts will find for the contractor, not for the public entity. So then you end up having a low bidder that now aggravated because they went through a process. They might create other challenges for us. That's a whole other issue. The second point I want to make to this is the reason why Triton is here is to manage these things. We will have an on-site representative here representing the district on-site every day when work is taking place to manage these things. we'll manage the contractors, we'll manage the payment applications, we'll manage the issues in the RFIs. We'll manage the schedule and the timeline, all right? With all these, with not just the low GC that you were talking about here, but all of the prime contractors, and there are 5, right? So that's what we do. And so, you know, I understand that responsibility as a professional builder. And, you know, I don't know if there are any professional builders out here. Most times there are not. So the district is relying on us and our professional experience to help you through this process. And that's why we make our suggestions or our recommendations that we do.
I know Paul's a second question, just a follow-up. I was at that meeting. Nobody said anything about that contractor. You were the one that brought it up, and the quote was they were not preferred contractor. And you raised 3 issues. One, they couldn't keep to a timeline with the whole project, which affected every other plumbing and sprinkler system, and every other company that came in, and that was a major issue. Second point is you said they had constantly had labor costs and labor issue. And the third point you said was they were constantly getting, and I'm not sure the terminology, additional work orders that cost more to do the project. And that was from you. That wasn't from anybody on the board or anybody in the audience. Those issues came from you. And again, listen, I was on the board, a number of other people have been around here. You don't have to take the lowest, you have to take the lowest responsible bidder. And I think at this point, you could easily justify it. Just go to Google and look this company up and see all the complaints and what's going on with that. I don't think it's very, but again, Kevin, you were the one that brought this up, not me or the board members.
And I wasn't being
No,
untruthful. It's the reality, it's the reality of the business that we're in. And the contractors and who they are. And look, it could be anybody, you have to manage them. Some are more difficult to manage than others, but it's not that they can't get through the project. So our recommendation moving forward would be with that bidder. Now, there's a little twist here that I want to add to while we're talking. If you choose to approve the alternate, which is the second floor, right, to be done, it changes the low bid GC. The low bid GC now becomes key construction. Okay. Interesting, right?
So was the Key Construction being the second lowest bidder?
They are the second lowest bidder on the base,
So wouldn't it
and they
be
would be the first lower bidder if you.
the second floor? So wouldn't it be smart to have them do both? Not to change contractors in the middle of the project?
Well, you would either award one or the other.
That's one of the questions for later, Barry, is when do we have any expectation the second floor would be finished if they went with the current plans of just phase 1, so that will have to attack later.
All right, to answer your second question in regards to some of the other costs. There is a line item in the budget for what they call firematic equipment. It's for, let me just make sure.
Would you like me to talk to what that item is for?
That's Pete.
Hey, how are you?
Good. No, it's actually Bob who made the comment, but Peter's here also. The firematic equipment is things like SCBA, it's the tailpipe fume exhaust, those kind of things. That's what firematic equipment is. There is a listing, a schedule, and cut sheets on the stuff, and it is open for discussion with people in the department if we want to substitute a different product. The purpose initially was to come up with the budget, and we've been following the budget, and we think we're safely inside the number that was carried, the 285.
It's 285,000 is the number.
Right, so that gets me to another question that I'm going to direct to the board. So $285,000 has been included in the budget for firematic equipment. Who spec'd out what that equipment is and whether it meets our needs?
We were going to talk to you about that and get the correct numbers because there's an example for the Cascade unit.
Okay, but time out, pause for a second, Blake. Isn't that ass backwards?
No.
You got a number that you're gonna vote on to make a decision on a project, then you're gonna ask us to spec it out. Oh, it's more expensive. What do we do now?
This is just some of the money that we're going to tap into. This isn't all of it. We have more money that's available to us for the lawyers.
And you need to explain to this group of people where that is, because we've been talking in circles all weekend long. And the communication, again, this is, I sent a note this morning, a courtesy note to all of you on the board, every member in this department, to Christine. Couldn't somebody reply, message received, we'll discuss it tonight?
I didn't.
No, Dwight, you
Okay.
didn't.
Okay.
No drat, no darn, no, oh shucks, I missed this one. You know, the Gomer Pyle Act has gotta stop.
No, it's.
You
I
can
didn't see
pick,
it,
you
and I
can
didn't
pick
see
up the phone and call Christine and say, hey, can you reply? Say, we'll discuss this tonight.
it. Okay, is that the end now? Can I answer some of it?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So we have a number of millions of dollars in our bank accounts currently. We had a conference call, I'm gonna say 2.5 weeks ago, with our attorney, with the project attorney, and with financial experts that looked at what we have been telling the public and what we wanted to build and what we needed money for, how much we needed, etc. They have opined that the money that we have on hand in our bank accounts now is money that we can referendum and use for this project, for at overages that we are encountering, including the Cascade. As an example, the Cascade has 2 different types. Jump in if I'm wrong here, but there's 2 different types, 2 different pressure levels. High pressure, and then there's a yet higher pressure level. We may want to go with one or the other, and that's something I'm gonna have to ask you to give guidance on, because it's firematic related, and I want your guidance on it. That's the Cascade unit. For example, the exhaust fume extractor from the trucks. We have money for these things. We can move, I don't know them, we can move multi-millions of dollars, numbers of, at least $1 million. More than that for sure, but I don't know the exact number, so please don't quote me. But anyway, we can move multi-millions of dollars to cover these things that are not in the $560,000 that we're short.
And it begs for me to ask the question, and Charles, you were there. Wednesday night, you were beat up over, I don't know, I'm not sure, I have to look it up. If this meeting occurred 2.5 weeks ago, why could you not have disclosed it to us then, explain this is where things are, this is what we have as far as money? Your exact phrase when we were asking about the money was, well, don't you think our future revenue will cover it? Or don't you think we'll have the money in the future?
That was not an exact quote. Sorry, I don't believe it was an exact quote. You're taking me a little bit.
Because then I called you onto the carpet and told you that I grew up with depression era parents. Remember, you don't spend what you don't have.
Yeah.
So I really went down that road.
Sure.
And you've got $1 million or 2, maybe that could be moved around. What happens if we go out and we have to put money down on a new ladder truck?
We have more than enough. Well, we have more than enough for a down payment, and we will have future revenues coming in. We also have the option of selling the Center Street Firehouse. We just recently got a draft estimate of what it could be worth on the market. So we have numbers of millions of dollars that we can use to cover these initial overages to build out the firematic safety equipment that we need to buy. But we don't need to buy it day one. So we have money, we can encumber it day 2. We have money. It's not like we don't have money. And I tried to bring that out on the Wednesday evening meeting.
You never said, we sat down about 2.5 weeks ago, had a meeting with all the financial people, and this is where we are. We do have money, X, Y, and Z here. Because we kept calling you out, saying that 500,000 is more like $1 million, $1.5 million. And you actually nodded yes.
And you understand, of course, like you just said a few moments ago, that I was sort of beat up. So I was trying to answer questions as they occurred. That may have been one that, I'm not gonna point my finger, but maybe you missed my answer. Maybe I didn't get it out because another one
I
popped
could
up.
actually turn to the group of people that were here. I mean,
My point
if I
is-
miss something, please, somebody jump. I don't want to be, beating Dwight up over this. But the fact that so many of us are here
Yeah.
should also
It's
speak
concerning.
volumes to the board.
Absolutely, no argument at all, Paul. Absolutely, and I appreciate the fact that people are showing up to this meeting. Truly. So, have I answered your question? Or is there another
Well,
one?
I still, no, hang on a
I would
second,
like
Barry.
to say
I
one
still
thing.
find it funny math. Perfectly honest. I'm not inferring that anyone's doing anything wrong.
Right.
But until somebody were to show me, and again, we go back to my issues with the treasury and the fact that I have not been able to get a breakdown of my own budget. I would love to see, we've got X amount of money here, X amount of money here, we're according to a financial plan, able to take $10 from here, $20 from here, and refer that to without impacting future projects such as a new tanker, a new tower ladder. Right, and the fact that the equipment that still needs to be spec'd out, which I still think is a backwards way to do this. We should have been involved in the conversation to say, we need a cascade system that's gonna be able to fill our rescue truck, which right now we can't.
Right.
We need one that's got to supports 4 bottles. We would like gear racks that are set a little bit further apart for ventilation. We want to make sure the floor underneath is clear. We want to have a hose drying system that's going to be able to handle multiple sets, multiple lengths of large diameter hose. We want to have washer dryer for decontaminating turnout gear, washer dryers to decontaminate our personal clothing that we're wearing underneath the gear.
Right.
So that $285,000 kind of disappears very quickly.
So, okay, let me step in here. This is Bob Mitchell speaking. I don't know if any of you know me, we've done several hundred fire station projects, probably 100 of them have been built. We have done equipment schedules many dozens of times. Now, I'm looking at what we have for yours. There is a Unimac washer extractor, there is a drying cabinet, there is a high-end residential style washer and dryer for lightweight items. The SCBA is based on Bauer Verticus. The budget for tailpipe exhaust is based on, I forget the same brand you have in the other part of the building. It was based on quotes we got from the installing vendor. They were updated as of April. They need to be updated again, but they're very close. And we're based on our looking at it today, the 285 has probably $20,000 worth of headroom in it from what's being called for. The gear lockers are 30-inch lockers, not 24s. They're open mesh gear grid, so they'll ventilate well. Tell me, and by the way, I am more than willing to go through all this stuff with whoever wants to through a Zoom meeting next Tuesday. We can go item by item by item. If you look at the floor plan, I'll look at the floor plan with you so you understand everything that's going on there.
Chief, can you explain to the board the projected cost of the tower ladder that you're looking at in the very near future, or a tanker, which is currently
Tanker is going to be about $1.5 million and probably a 2-year build. And a tower ladder, very similar. Croton just took delivery of one. Is a 3-year build with $2 years.
How much?
$3 million. All right, so we're looking at $4.5 million to $5 million by the time we actually pull the trigger. And we've held off on it because of the uncertainty with what was going on with the project. So it will be more expensive as time goes on to move forward with it because everything is going to keep going up in price, which dovetails and kind of segues into finishing out the second floor.
Right.
The same rationale that you guys are hot to trot to vote tonight to approve a bid so that it can start moving and not delay it beyond where the prices could potentially go up. Isn't that same logic and rationale rationalize why you should finish the second floor now when it would cost $1.5 million, whereas 3 years from now, it's going to cost $3 million, $2 million? I don't know what the number would be.
I don't believe our expectation and our hope, our desire is though, to build it in rapid succession. I was talking to Lynn Weinig earlier, and I don't play a lawyer on TV. I'm not a lawyer in real life. She was indicating that we cannot use the same contractor that's building phase 1 to build out phase 2.
Hey, Dwight, I'm sorry, this is Lynn, if I can pipe in here for a minute. It's not that you cannot use it, it would still have to go out for bid again. If you accept the award for the first floor and the vanilla shell for the second floor, you're not accepting the bid today for the second floor. So it's a little sort of complicated, but you would have to go out, if you have the money in your coffers, you'd have to go out for referendum to get approval to use that money to build the second floor, okay? And so you would go out for bid again after the referendum passed. The existing contractors would obviously be permitted to bid, and if they were one of the lowest or the lowest bidder, they would be put on the job. It may be that as a practical matter, and Kevin could answer this, if we use the existing bidders, obviously you don't have the mobilization costs. They're already on site, they've already got the employees, they've got the insurance. So it would seem to me that they would likely come in as the lowest bidder, but Kevin, I don't know if that's a too big an assumption, but we just don't know until you go out for bid.
Would that be a permissive referendum or a public voting referendum? If you decided that you wanted to use $2 million that you got somewhere, can that be a permissive referendum that the board would vote on? You move it along, great, we're good to go? Or is that a public vote that has to go out to the public, hold an election, the whole 9 yards?
Lynn, can you?
I will have to speak with bond counsel on that to get an answer, because the call that Dwight was speaking about that we had was with bond counsel, and they would have to answer that issue. Question.
So I'm not an attorney, and just take this with a grain of salt. In my experience, those have been permissive referendums, spending money you already have. That the voting referendum is where you have to raise people's taxes. So, but Lynn will get that for sure for you. But I would be
I just don't want to.
guardedly optimistic.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. I just don't want to speak out of turn and give wrong information, so I want to confirm it.
So if it is in fact can be handled via permissive referendum, now I know the clock is ticking, you've got till like the 21st, 22nd of July, otherwise these bids are null and void, you have to start over. Is it worthwhile, if you have the money, as you've said, the financial folks have advised that you do, to put off your vote on awarding a bid until next week? Still have time before the expiration of the bids. If you are able to do this via permissive referendum, where you're not going to have to go back to the public and say, oops, we're gonna raise your taxes a little bit more, finishing the second floor.
That would be an ideal situation. I would love to see that happen. I would love
Yeah,
to.
but there's a time frame for permissive referendums, within which period of time, the board would have the public would have the ability to, come with a petition to ask for, a formal vote. And I'm not sure that would be, I don't think it would give it. It's 45 days after the adoption. I'm just looking it up right now. That's how much time you would need to let the permissive referendum sit and see whether somebody was going to come up and challenge it.
So you still couldn't pull it off before the deadline of the 20th. So I just, in my experience, also, you can get very competitive bidding from the contractors on site, because it's just a matter of them staying on site and getting some more money.
Right. I mean, that's what I was trying to get at, but exactly.
Yeah.
So it would likely, you're saying then it would not guaranteed, but there's a good likelihood that you would keep the same contractors.
If we were to vote on this next week, I mean, let's say our next meeting is the 18th, I believe. If we were to put the vote off until then, we would potentially be able to start the project with signing the contracts, getting the permits in hand, and mustering the contractors. Then, in parallel with that, we could, and correct me if I'm wrong, and this is a question, would we be able to go out to referendum, approve the monies that we need to build out the second story, and this would allow us to get the money in hand, officially, legally permissive by the public, and then when the second story is ready to be built out in a year, 13 months, whatever it is, we have the money available for them to start working up there, as opposed to a white vanilla box.
And that's a question of timing it, but I would think there'd be enough time. Bob,
I
you
think
think?
that's enough time, sure. I have to say, I don't know why you would delay the resolution from tonight to a week from now. It just puts you down to only having 2 days clear. What if somebody gets sick and they can't come and vote or something? It just,
Bob, the
why
reason
take a chance?
Bob, the reason we asked for the delay, we had a meeting last week where we had asked someone from the board to come speak at the department meeting. And there were too many, I don't know, I don't have that information with me, where the department, I mean, I don't know if you can see the room, we've got more people in this meeting than we have in years. Because of the uncertainty that we were going to be getting basically a shell of a building that didn't include the finances for the firematic equipment, the decontamination equipment, et cetera. This conversation has cleared up some of that, but the other part of it too is finishing out the second floor of the building so that we're going to be moving into a completed structure, not something with a dangling chad that'll be finished in whatever period of time. So that's why I sent the email to the department and to the board, respectfully asking that they hold off till we could have a conversation in a meeting to discuss it. Because there's been, and quite frankly, and I'm not saying anything I haven't said to the board before, after Russell and I reworked the plans with you and Pete, and then the board went radio silent with us, did not engage us any further, and reverted to the plans prior to what Russell and I had done. That's the atmosphere that we've been working under, where the department has not been included in a lot of the decisions, et cetera. That was even raised at a board meeting a couple of years back when the plans were going to be voted on by the board. And one of the sitting commissioners happened to ask me as chief what my thoughts were on the new plans. And I had to say, I have no clue because I haven't seen them. And that led to some upheaval on the board. So it's kind of the backstory of where we are and how we got to this point tonight, asking all these questions that we've been asking for quite some time that haven't quite been getting the appropriate responses.
So if I could speak, I understand what you're saying, but what I would like to assure you of is that answering the questions won't alter what happens in terms of getting the contract signed with the contractors. Until such time as the second floor is built out, there is opportunity to alter what goes on up there. And that could happen if they pass the resolution tonight or pass the resolution in a week. In terms of the firematic equipment, you have Bob's assurance that it's covered. And as far as, you know, because the first floor has been done down to the very finest level of detail. So I am committing to you, and, you know, I've been on this, you know, I don't know if you know this, but I started working on this project in 2002. I'm committing to you that we can meet starting next Tuesday and talk through the second floor. And if you guys want to lobby for a different scheme for the second floor, that's between you and the Board of Commissioners. There's nothing that getting the project started in construction will do to interfere with being able to make that change. You know, they're going to be busy for a whole bunch of the time building the foundation, putting up the steel, pouring the slab, stuff like that.
Pete,
Anything
I understand that. The
okay.
questions really were being driven by, we had no visibility into the financial aspect of it. This is the first time tonight, I don't mean to speak for the membership, but as the chief, I guess I kind of do. This is the first that we are hearing there is money available in different pockets within the finance team. That's not the way it's been presented to us over the last few weeks. Once the bids were revealed, we were told we were almost $600,000 short. And then a number of us have raised the question saying that 600,000 really is a lot more because it didn't include the items that you just said are included in that 285. So part of it's been a communication between the board and the department when we've been asking questions and haven't gotten the answers, which is why we were asking to slow things down, not to vote on things for tonight till we could have this type of a dialogue. The second floor that's in the plans, we're fine with. We've reviewed it, we designed it, we actually put in, and I had very frank conversations with then Commissioner Murphy, with Dwight, with Charlie as well. So that part's fine. It was just a matter of when is this going to happen? How much is it going to cost? You know, are we going to be moving into, again, a building that's strictly a garage for fire trucks with nothing further? But that's slowly coming out and more clear. So I don't think we're necessarily in the same position we were an hour ago before the meeting started.
Paul, to add to your comments, I don't know how we can vote on this tonight because we're saying we have enough money in buckets. Where are these buckets?
I
Where's-
share
Where's the money?
I share Charlie's concern because I've been asking the same question for 6 months now. In particular, I've been asking questions about $1.5 million referendum that's been passed. Where is the money? Is it in an account? Has it been utilized to pay down expenses? I share the concerns of the membership because I too have not gotten any answers, and I sit right here.
But could I ask one question then? So if you go with the second floor, now you're saying there is a different low bidder. So that I think would make sense to try to find the money. Once we have the money, then you can do the vote. Because based on the public and municipal law, the outcome will be different.
Well,
Also,
there's
there
a
was-
problem,
yeah,
there's a problem with that because if you miss the 20th deadline and you have to go out to bid again on everything, then none of the numbers you know now have any standing, and the bidders might bid higher.
And the other thing, Bob, if I could interject for a moment, is
sure.
that until you have that referendum and it is approved, right? There's no challenges to it, or if there's a vote necessary, you can't accept a contract that you don't have the money for. So in other words, you do have it in the accounts, but it hasn't been approved for that use yet. So that it's unfortunately a bit of a, you know, which comes first, but you have to have the approval first.
But you can work that into the contract language that you have it phase 1 and phase 2 and have a price for the phase 2, and you put in the language, you know, based on getting the referendum approval.
Right, but Dwight, if I, Dwight.
You know what? I
Right
think that's a good idea, actually. And
But
Lynn,
that's the way, that is the way the contracts were drawn. If I can, and Bob, you know, you drew the contracts. We do have alternates.
yeah,
We have, and the second floor is an alternate. So that is the way it's drawn, but the actual contracts that are in the bid documents, those are set now. Those are not going to be changed.
Lynn, do you think it's possible to modify the contract subject to their agreement that says that this alternate is going to be accepted upon approval of the voter for the permissive referendum at this price? I bet they'd all agree to that because they want the job and they want to get going.
I would have to do some research. I can't give you an off the cuff. I just can't tell you that tonight, but I can look into it.
One other thing I'd like to say about the low bidder, it's the only thing I know because Ken in our office has been paying attention. The low bidder has Hull Masonry as their mason, and we have had the best conceivable experience with Hull. They did Peekskill, they're doing Beacon, they're doing Putnam Valley. We have never had that good of a mason before, and I think if I were you, I would just try not to sacrifice that.
All right, let me just stop the conversation real quick. Chief, go ahead.
But it's 2 questions. One, if the alternate floor plans for the second floor were in this original bid, why couldn't then say that you're gonna allow the second floor now and go with the alternate bidder for the second highest, second lowest bidder, whatever? 2, you don't have the money now, how can you vote on it anyhow?
We have been assured by bond council, I guess it's called, that we are allowed to, with permissive referendum, move enough money to cover those
But
things.
you just said if you don't have the money now, you can't.
But
move
No,
forward.
okay, because the money they have exceeds the amount needed for the contracts, where the shortfall is on soft costs. So they have more than enough money to enter into the contracts with the contractors.
Can I ask a question, Bob?
no, Mary, 1 second. Nancy, go ahead.
Lynn, it's Nancy. I just have a quick question, just to understand for myself where this money is. Are you saying that for the permissive referendum, the money that we're seeking is in capital reserves?
I'll be honest with you, Nancy, you know, this was all discussed with bond council and with district council. I had asked him to be included because he was, you know, really more familiar with this. We can get an answer for you. I can get an answer for you and have it sort of written out so that we have everything in plain language for everybody to understand.
I would appreciate that because most of us were not in on that conversation. And I'm
Probably should have been.
Right, and I'm concerned that with the committee to buy apparatus, from what I'm taking from this is that money would be pulled from all different capital reserves. And most of that money is earmarked for other things. So I don't think it's fair in my mind right now, from what I'm hearing, to say that we have the money to cover the costs and expenses necessary to build out the second floor or provide the equipment necessary down the road to completely fit out the first floor. So if that information can be relayed to the board and then we can send it to the membership, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, so in terms of what you have earmarked, you know, the money for, that's a whole nother story. I mean, if that's earmarked for something different and you want to build out the second floor, you know, then if the board decides as a group that you don't want to use that money to build out the second floor, then that's a board decision, right?
Exactly. So I just want to make sure that the capital reserve for trucks, for example, is not affected and not touched to help build out the second floor of the extension of this building.
Yeah,
it should
so
consider.
I think one of the problems here also is the district doesn't have a treasurer at this time who would sort of be able to readily answer these questions. They're at a bit of a loss in that regard. So, but I can, you know, give you a general overview. I don't have a copy of your account, so I don't know where the money is earmarked, but I assume, you know, you can get, you know, copies of statements, right? And then you can see.
Exactly. And the last time I saw those were in February, and I can't imagine that those accounts have grown by $1 million+ dollars. So that's my concern, and I just want to lay it out there that I don't believe that money is readily available to finish the construction of the first and second floors.
So if I may just interject here, I spoke with our banker today. And can we go off the record for a moment now? If I say something, can we keep it internal? No.
It's recorded.
Yeah.
So public.
No, and this is a public meeting, Dwight, so
So
everything
we've
is
got-
subject to the sunshine law.
We've got multiple millions of dollars. And to my knowledge, we have about 1.4, if I'm not mistaken, in-house, maybe $1.5 million in-house capital reserves. I don't know the exact breakup of this money, but we've got approximately the same amount in capital reserve for trucks. So, and that's not all of our accounts. So I don't have the exact dollar value, but it's we have a lot of money. I don't know. Well, just with capital reserve house, we can cover the first and second floors, but that would decimate capital reserve house. I don't think we want to do that in case something dramatic or drastic happened. I think we need to have a few dollars in there in those accounts. There are other monies that are scattered about in our checking account, and we can justify the movement of that. Or maybe even depending on how much we have in these accounts, which I don't know because we don't have the treasurer, as you said, we can potentially move some of that money and encumber it for the second floor. So we have quite a number of dollars. As a matter of fact, Charlie, I think you have online access. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but I can't go in.
Yes, you can. You have the online access. We don't.
I am not head of finance and I'm not a treasurer.
You don't have to be.
Well,
We're
I
gonna
think
need
we
it.
could talk
Okay,
about this
that's
later, but
something
we
we can
need to
talk-
find out how much money the
Can I
district has.
follow my question,
Well,
Mitchell?
wait, there was a conversation this weekend, or with legal, certainly, about us having enough money. How do we know if we have enough money if we don't know how much money we have?
Can I just interject here for a minute? In our discussion with the bond council, one of the things that came up was that you've already paid a bunch of fees such as your architectural engineering, construction management fees, other things like that, which may total more than the shortfall. So if that money isn't being reimbursed to the district out of the bond amount, then you have enough money to build a project.
That's right. I've forgotten that. Thank you, Peter.
That's again, a decision the board has to make, financial decision, so where the money is coming or going from. But if you don't have to reimburse the district for money already spent, you have enough money for the project currently, for phase one, anyway.
Last Wednesday night, one of the very pointed comments that were made was that we had very little faith in the board being able to complete this project. This circuitous conversation is exactly the reason why. You had this conversation with bond counsel 2.5 weeks ago. You didn't have a treasurer then. The entire board was not involved in that conversation. Shouldn't somebody have raised their hand, take out the ledger pad and start taking some notes on where the monies were? Last Wednesday night, we were having a meeting with you. I asked you 2 days before, would you present an update and status on the project? Sure. You weren't prepared for the meeting then.
I wasn't prepared for the specific questions you asked, but I came with an update and I was.
But
prepared to
Dwight,
give you
that
more
update
information.
was the same update that we've received,
It
where
was- There was
we're gonna
more
word
to
a
it,
bit,
but I
we're
wasn't
gonna stick
allowed
a
to
shovel
go
in
any
the
further.
ground. Even tonight, of the 5 of you, nobody knows how much money we have, where the money is, what its dispensation is, what it can be used for. Are we double dipping where we're talking about trucks and we're talking about using it for capital reserves? You know, we've got sums of millions. Well, if we had this sums of millions available, why weren't we discussing this Wednesday night to say, we're not $500,000 short. We've got money in-house to be able to do this. Maybe an X amount available. We'll be able to finish the shell. We're not going to be short any funds.
And I kind of would like to just answer that I believe, I didn't record the session, but I believe that I did bring that up. It may have not been registered, but I did bring up that we have multiple millions of dollars. I believe I even said the number of millions of dollars we have on hand. I don't know if it was received well because there was a lot of conversations going on simultaneously. So
I'd like to offer a thought here. So I ran some numbers today and I'm not your accountant, but by my calculation, you need about 14.9 million from this point forward to complete the project, not counting finishing out the second floor of the addition. And you've got 15 and something in the bond. So I think that's the other part that Peter was alluding to, is that part of the bond is meant to reimburse you for the money you've already spent out. And that's the stuff you would be able to pursue with the permissive referendum, plus the costs related to finishing out the second floor. So.
Well, can I ask a question? In 2006, we interviewed architects for the firehouse expansion. You were one of them.
Not in 06, a little later, 08 or something, 12.
07, at the very latest. The board at that time decided to hire Frank Ralph from Long Island to do the project.
Yeah.
I felt it was better suited for what we needed. You may have done some stuff a few years prior to that.
Yeah, in 2002, we did a study.
Okay, but the original architect for this project was Frank Ralph. And then later on, at some point, the board decided to hire you. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay,
That was a clarification.
How much money has the board paid so far that could be expected to be reimbursed from the bond?
I think, Lynn, you made a number, you said a number earlier today, because again, we don't have a treasurer to tell us numbers out of our accounts and where the money has been going. I apologize for that, but we're working towards that goal. Anyway, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said something about 1 point something million in soft costs thus far, engineering and legal.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how much, I'm not following the, the checks as they're getting sent out. But I don't know how much, has gone out already under the architect's contract. There's also, a site, planner contract, and there's legal fees. I don't have that number, but, I assume that it's a lot. I mean, the board should really have those numbers, I would assume. And again, if there was a treasurer, I'm sure they could pull that together, but that's not a number that I could say with any certainty. I'm assuming about $1 million has been
Mhm.
spent. And that would, we're going back now also to site planning. We spent almost 2 years before the planning board. There have been a lot of expenses put into this project that have already been spent. And it's gone out to bid. No, I'm sorry. It's gone out to referendum multiple times. The constituents have finally agreed that this expansion needs to be done, and the voters are expecting that the expansion is going to be completed. I believe in the bond resolution, and I have to double check this, but I believe in the bond resolution, the second floor was an alternate. I don't think that it was promised that it would be built, because we didn't know what the total cost would be. I could be wrong about that. I have to check that.
When is the last financials for the district?
About a month ago.
It shouldn't be in there.
It could well be.
Have we looked at those financials?
Not being a financial centric person, I have not. No, you're talking about something that occurred.
All of the
last
last
year.
official
You're talking about
financials
the
for the
audit.
district were done.
But we saw the audit, you could see.
Right, so
they
listen,
were-
listen,
But Nancy,
Can
but
we-
they should be right there.
Exactly, exactly.
So why aren't we have 5 people here? I don't know. That is sad, in my
It
opinion.
is unfortunate that we don't have those numbers in front of us, and I'm sorry for that. But I would like to move this meeting along in a little bit. And I think, Kevin, you may have something else you wanted to address us, or anybody have questions for Kevin?
Well, just gonna go like, what are the next steps? So we've aired out a number of different possible scenarios. You understand where the membership is coming from, wanting to make sure that what we're actually going to be completed in 2 years or however long it takes is a completed structure
Right.
that has all the health and wellness and safety features for the members. We already have a couple of members who are, suffering from cancer, and we've got to deal with that.
Okay.
Whatever we can do to avoid that for anyone else going forward should be your #1 priority. So we've discussed, possibly you've got money, maybe somewhere sort of, we're not 100% certain.
No, we are.
So from the perspective of, you've got a July 20th deadline of awarding bid. We've got the potential of a permissive referendum to complete the second floor at some point during the construction process. And I think that's a fair assessment, necessarily that it's not going to be done today. But to Ula's point, it would make sense if there was a way we could do it now so that the current second lowest bidder for the shell would actually be the lowest bidder for the entire project. But that's because of the 45-day deadline for a permissive referendum. That option is most likely off the table. Is that a accurate explanation? I try. And I'm not a lawyer, I play one on TV. So then I turn to the board, what are our next steps?
You sleep at the Holiday Inn?
I think what we have to do, and somebody jump in if I'm moving incorrectly here. What we need is, we need to get a bookkeeper slash treasurer to give us guidance on where the money is, as Nancy has asked several times over the last month or two anymore.
Well, actually, 6 months, but
So
that's okay.
But the money should be in the statement. You said you have the last official date
We
in
have a
February.
but
So you look at it, you find the money.
you, I think maybe we're talking about two different things. We can say what we have on hand in deposits. We can tell you that. The problem is, we have soft buckets, as I would like to call them. Maybe there's some other more professional term. And one is called capital reserve trunk. One is called capital reserve building. And then we have our operating expenses, like for Verizon and insurance costs and things like that. So,
Understood, that's simple,
Okay,
vanilla
but-
enough, but
but
they
the-
should be clearly stated in a statement.
And when was the last time the board received a financial statement, what you just described?
Right.
Granted, you didn't have a treasurer for last month's meeting, but did you have a report generated
prior to
for
that.
the May meeting?
Yep.
Okay, why can't we look back to that more a ballpark?
That's
And if you're not a financial person, you have a financial person sitting to your left. I understand internal turmoil, not in charge of treasury, of finance at this point, but using his expertise, just like I would turn to you if we needed to design an antenna for the roof and how we need to do it. Instead of sitting here wringing our hands saying, oh, we just don't have a treasurer, use your resources. If I had an engineering question, I'm not gonna wait, I'll ask Ed. You know, it's if we have a law enforcement question, we're going right to Mike. You know, so, but I mean, to the wringing of our hands and the, you know, unfortunately, you opened the door with your drat comment the other day. The goal, you opened the door to this next comment with your drat response the other day. The Gomer Pyle stuff has to stop. You've got resources, you just can't defer everything to, you know, well, let's gonna talk to Lynn up here. You guys have expertise, if you were voted for these positions, you need to act accordingly.
You are right. Okay, so what we will do, we will agree that, and I know there's. I think that what I would like to do is I would like to postpone this vote until the 16th. No, the 18th, I'm sorry, the 18th. What I would like to do on the 16th is I would like to have a meeting with the department members and the board. If we all can agree that the 16th is okay, it's 6:30, we'll say here at the firehouse. Kevin may or may not be around because he's going to be on vacation, but Bob and I think Pete will be available via Zoom. So we can ask questions of them and we will have a financial, a better financial understanding to present to you then. So we can make our vote, postpone it. We can continue doing work to find the money and tell you where it's allocated. And assure you that we will be doing that. The second floor. Hopefully in lockstep with the build out of the first floor. And as you know, the first floor, all of the work to build the first floor has to be done before the second floor can be completed. So we've got, plus we have, just say for round figures, we have about $1 million if we were to sell Center Street, probably a tad more. So we have resources. We have to get a permissive referendum for some of the money we have now that's not in a already allocated bucket like trucks or house. We absolutely understand. I mean, ask anyone on the board. We all understand that we need to have money for the upcoming purchase of these trucks, but we also understand that we don't have to pay for them upfront. So we have 2 and maybe 3 years before we need that money. So we will work towards those goals. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, I think historically, we have never bought a truck on credit. We have always bought it cash. So I would like to continue in that important realm. I would like to continue to have that money available for us when it comes time.
And I'd like to counter your timeline because I think Pete or Bob raised a very good point. You wait till the 18th, what if something happens? The 20th is a Saturday, so that really make it the 19th has to be a decision made since it's a business day as opposed to Saturday for notifying them. I would like to counter that meeting you'd like to have is the 15th. And then you vote at the end of that meeting on the 15th. This gives you the rest of the week to contact your folks. Going the 18th, having a meeting on the 16th, do it all on the 15th.
It's just another meeting, 2 meetings, but I have no problem with that. Let me just ask Bob and Ed, are you folks available on the 15th as Paul is asking?
I'm available on the 15th.
You know, if Pete would be available?
Peter, you,
Sarah's muted. Yes, I'm available on the 15th also.
Okay, would 6:30 be acceptable for everybody? Is that right? Okay.
Fine.
Could I ask one thing then?
Yes, sir.
We talked about reaching out to the contractor about the amendment to the contract, if they would be amenable or to include the potential second floor. That was something that you felt they would be amenable to, but we have to reach out to them first to get that
I
agreement.
I could be wrong. It's happened before. Lynn, am I incorrect in saying that we have to encumber the money and then wait 45 days for approval? And then we can ask the contractors to bid on it again, the second story?
That's my understanding. I would, again, as I said before, I have to research this. It's a little bit of a tricky question because it changes who the lowest responsible bidder is.
right.
And if it turns out that you take the second lowest bidder, but the referendum fails for some reason, then you've taken the second bidder
Yeah, right.
incorrectly.
So we have to put the horse before the cart and get the money encumbered first and then go out to the bids.
Yeah.
All right, does that answer your question?
Okay, so that means that we have to use the contract assets.
Right now, yes, right.
I apologize if this is a regressive question. I just would like to fully understand. The $500,000 that we are over budget for just the first floor.
Right.
We keep throwing this number of 2 million around to include finishing that second floor. I was under the impression that that 500,000 was included in that 2 million estimate, correct?
It is.
So where are we getting that 500,000 if for some reason the second floor does not pass or all these plans fall away?
Kevin, if I'm wrong, if I'm not mistaken, the 560-something thousand, we're rounding. it to
Whatever the
six.
over budget,
Yeah.
yes.
That's over budget for the build out of the first floor.
Mhm.
Now, that doesn't include, as Paul says, it doesn't include the fume extraction, the washing gear for the clothes, turnout gear.
I thought they said it did.
Yes, it did.
You just said it didn't.
That's the soft cost, which is,
It's included in the budget, but it's not included in the budget.
okay. So,
Does that make
so
sense?
the 2 million plus or minus is what we need to have to do soup to nuts.
And
But I
also to
thought we just said that we
and
can
also to
bids
reimburse
if
your
we don't
the
have
month.
money.
Sorry.
So what you want to know is where is the
Where
500,000?
do we get the 500,000? If we don't do the second floor, we're still short 600
Yeah.
grand. Where'd that come from? And they're saying from the multiple buckets that are still player to be named later.
Right. And,
We have-
You said you.
We can't vote on it
Unless they do
until we do the
whatever.
referendum.
Can't vote anything. But.
so and just
We're
if-
getting $1.3 million in taxes.
Go ahead, Bob.
so keep in mind that the 600,000 you're short, you've already spent over $1 million, so you're 400,000 in the black from that point of view. The 600, you understand what I'm saying? The money in the bond greatly exceeds the amount you need to pay the contractors to do the job.
Doesn't, because we have to take the money from the bond to reimburse accounts that we spent over $1 million.
But that's if we want to reimburse our accounts. If we don't need to.
But back to the question,
You
again,
can't
so
vote getting a financial report.
Right.
well, to recap then where we are with regards to the 600,000. The board can vote right now to go with the lowest bidder with the understanding that you're short currently $600,000. There's no caveat from the awardees that says you have to have exactly the amount that we quoted in hand, ready to go the day we stick a shovel in the ground. So you can wear that risk of $600,000 basically.
And
So-
that risk doesn't put you in a position of not being able to pay the contractors. it comes against reimbursing yourself for the money you've already expended.
Correct.
Right, but from the perspective of the bids came in at X, we have a bond for Y, there's a differential between the two. That differential does not preclude them from going out and awarding the bid to someone. They're going to run the risk of saying, we'll find $600,000 somewhere over the course of the project.
Yeah, but there's still something I don't think you're understanding. So the brick and mortar contract amounts is A. The soft cost is B. A plus B equals a certain amount. Now, the bond is less than A plus B, but it's greater than A plus the remaining portions of B that you have to spend. So the only thing that is, forgetting the build out of the second floor, the only thing that is quote unquote at risk is you're repaying yourself for the money you've already spent. And from my participation in that meeting with the bond council, you're able to do that anyway from your stored money in these other accounts. So
without any referendum.
You have not taken into account a single aspect. If we build out the second floor, about the equipment that's needed on the second floor, aside from all the stuff that's needed on the first floor, such as kitchen items and maybe a PT items, equipment, etc. That's not even been discussed. And the second point I want to raise is, I still don't know, and I've asked this question, I'll leave it open-ended question like you. How much all this extras, accessories, the equipment for everything, exhaust system, cascade system, and all the systems that we need in this firehouse addition, from IT systems to alarm systems to surveillance camera systems. I'm sure at one point you guys brought up a figure about that. I mean, how much over $1 million is all that going to be? That's my opening question.
We're already carrying in the soft cost budget 75,000 for AV computers and that stuff. So
how much over $1 million is all this extra stuff going to cost?
I don't understand the nature of your question. We've already laid out that that the firematic equipment needed for the first floor is covered with the 285. And in the current budget, there's 75 for AV and computers. At this point, there's nothing in there for the stoves for upstairs.
So you're telling me the money you're talking about now, the 285, is going to cover everything downstairs, all the equipment, all the systems, all the fire alarm systems, all the surveillance cameras.
No. The 285 is not the surveillance cameras. That's in the 75, or some of it may have been in the electrical contract. I've lost track.
But there's separate line items for security system, for sprinkler system, for stuff like that. It's already included in the budget numbers. That's already covered by what's been budgeted with the bond. The things that we are short, is the $600,000 in soft cost. The other construction related items are all included within that. When we get to build out the second floor and put the gym and whatever, the lovely comfortable chairs for the meeting room, those will be expenses that'll have to be addressed at that point in time, but they're not showstopper things where we've got chairs we can throw in the room. We've got a stove, we've got a grill that we could use, so from that perspective, I don't want to derail the conversation from those things are, in my mind, are the nice to have. We've got gym equipment we can throw up there for now. We've got chairs to throw up there for now. The kitchen's not going to be decommissioned anytime soon. Hopefully we can get the stove fixed. So those things are all taken
Well,
care
you
of.
need a new one, so. Yeah.
But
I have
can I
to
ask one
say,
question? Will the district need to get reimbursed for that $1 million or not?
Well, it's 600,000.
It's not $1 million. It's the 560 something, $560,000. And no.
Why about 15 minutes ago?
I think, Lynn, the question is money that they've spent on lawyers and all those, the accumulated funds that we are able to reimburse the district from the bond, once we can tap into the bond, does the district have to reimburse itself to make itself whole again, or can you spend that money?
I think they can spend the money.
Right. Has it been expensed or is it sitting on the balance sheet somewhere?
That's what we.
I think the point of the $1 million may be that there's already been a lot of money expended. And, I guess, as far as I know, this project was established and started because you need new fire trucks and you need a place to put the fire trucks. The new fire trucks won't fit in the existing facility.
Correct.
So the basic, still remains the same. There's a lot of details. One person may not know the answer to, each of the questions, but I think that the board is trying to, to answer them as best as they can. I think it was a good suggestion to have the next meeting on the 15th, which gives a week to get together, the answers to, to the questions. The fire department may not be happy with all of the answers. And the fact remains that as it sits right now, the money to build out the second floor doesn't exist. But there can be plans for a phase 2 to build it out. And it may just have to be a waiting period. But I do know this, if the board doesn't proceed at this point with the bids as proposed, there's every indication that the costs will rise. And then, I don't know if it goes out for a vote again to the voters, if the voters are going to want to pay more for something that could have been built for a lower price. I mean, that's something that, the board.
Argument with regard to the floor, Ms. Weinig, is that, while we're trying to push to see where we can do the second floor now or in the near future within the project, for the same rationale that you just shared with regards to costs going up, delay past the 20th of July. So we're definitely cognizant of the time deadlines, which is part of the reason we have been pushing for conversations and information. And I think tonight, again, not speaking for everyone, has been a lot more eye-opening, and it would have been nice to have this information and these questions answered sooner when we were raising them. But I'm big on kind of assigning tasks and takeaways. So the permissive referendum to find out what needs to be done when you figure out where the money is. Ms. Weinig is going to speak with bond counsel with regards to that. Is that?
Yes.
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 So then for the fire district board, you're going to work on your financial information to find out where the money is, what buckets has what, and what is available without depleting either trucks or without depleting the building reserves in case there is any type of a problem that comes up from that.
Exactly.
When can we
Let me
expect?
just have a moment here. John, please go ahead.
So my takeaway from this is, I mean, we can all argue back and forth all we want tonight, but really you can't vote or shouldn't vote until next week, until you actually have a financial report that says I need to make myself whole with the money we spent from the bond, or we can do without that money and approve the first phase, we'll call it.
Well,
So,
I think we can approve the first phase tonight if we wanted, but I'm lobbying to do it next Monday.
Your financials.
How soon can we?
Hang on one second,
Okay.
please. We have bank accounts that we know how much is in those bank accounts. We have enough to do this. We just have to move the money. We don't even have to touch the capital reserve truck or building to have enough money from our regular operating accounts to move that money, use that money to pay off this shortage, this overage. So
What is that giving up though? As if you're taking money from somewhere, the department or somebody's losing something.
no,
And the way,
it's money that's in a checking account that's not encumbered for a particular purpose. It's operating expenses. So if you want to say that we're not going to be able to operate, well, that's a little overstated. We're going to be able to operate. We don't need the 1 point whatever that's in that account
So
to
to Mike's
operate
point,
continuously.
I need to buy 10 more sets of turnout gear for this fiscal year.
Okay.
All right, am I still able to purchase those 10 sets of turnout gear without being encumbered in any way, shape, or form? And you're then able to still use money from your operating account to address the deficiency of the 600,000?
As the moment that I know a specific, a positive answer to that, or a negative answer, as soon as I know the answer to your question, I will get you that
Okay,
information.
but that's,
But I don't know
that's
that.
why, that's Mike's question. So you can't say that that checking account money is unencumbered, because that's made up of money that we have expectations for budgetarily for my operation. So I think from that perspective, if you can have that information first Monday night.
Okay.
I think that will help
We're
us.
gonna do our very best to have.
I'm sorry to say, you're very you have to do it. It's, you can't just hope for the best and shoot for the stars.
No, I agree.
Listen, I have to say, it's embarrassing for me to sit here, and I don't know about anybody else. I'm getting answers to questions that I have been asking for months now. So this has been helpful to me, so I know some of the answers, but it's very troubling to me to now find out that we have money for this project and nobody knows where it is. Because the last time that I looked at any of the accounts where I was able to actually put my hand on a bank statement was February. And from February, I don't see where this other money is. So I would like to see it myself. And once I do and can understand it, you certainly would be the next people to find out. Because I'm embarrassed, to be honest with you, to sit here and not have answers, not know where this money is. It's new to me. I thought we would have to borrow it. I could say a lot more, but I won't at this point. You need answers, I need answers, and I think the public needs answers as to where this money is. Because if it's found money, it's new to me.
And just as a quick caveat, if I can, before you guys are talking about finances and potentially moving capital reserves over here, over there, you should probably have a conversation with the chief staff and say, hey, it might take us 5 years to rebuild this capital fund. Is there something that we're gonna need in the near future? Hey, our OSHA standards for all fire departments could be changing. We might have to get 15 cents of turnout, right? So that could drop tomorrow, that could drop in 10 years. We don't know. But to take that money and say, oh, we're gonna use it for something else and we'll figure that out down the road is also irresponsible. The estimate for a tower ladder, it is going up day by day. There's tower ladders that are on order that they're asking for $500,000 extra when they're on the assembly line. So that's the world that we're in right now, and that's the situations that we have to come across. So to just blindly take out money from trucks or house or wherever it's coming from, you should have a conversation with the chief staff to say, hey, what are we gonna need in the near future, okay, that we can semi-predict right now? Because we're always gonna have something that we can't predict, and that's just the nature of the beast. But if we can predict, hey, we probably need a tower ladder in the next 3 years, right? Or at least to order one, we're gonna need that money, okay? The turnout gear. The whole purpose of this whole building was for cancer prevention, right? We've talked about the building, we've talked about getting material. What is the board, okay, doing for us for cancer prevention today? That's another question that has yet to be answered.
Are you referring to the washing and cleaning?
Anything of personnel, of equipment, of gear. You know, we've got one very small machine that can handle a turnout coat or a set of bunker pants at a time.
And you're bringing it contaminated
Yep.
gear into clean
And
and
you've
clean
got
air.
the,
It's-
you know, the
it's
bays,
ridiculous.
you've got the exhaust from the apparatuses where we're getting changed. There's no shower facility that's functional. So it's all,
But
so I mean, from that
quick
Well,
perspective.
the new,
what
the
can
new,
we expect?
Go ahead, Bob.
the new addition will rectify those things. You realize that. It'll be an advanced decon laundry.
But we've got a couple of members now who are dealing with issues that are attributable to this, and nothing has been done beyond the 20 years that this project has been kicking around.
Understood.
So I think what we have to do is go back to the House committee and the rest of the board and see if there's something, maybe the chiefs can give us guidance on this. What do we need today to start the process to minimize risks to firefighters and help firefighter safety going forward from today? So if there's something that if we can talk about it, maybe you can give us a list of monies or things you'd like to buy that will help in that regard for this coming Monday's meeting. Would that be something we can ask you to help us?
No, because we don't know what the cost, our biggest expense right now that we know of are going to be 2 pieces of apparatus.
Right.
Whether or not we prioritize them differently is going to depend on what you end up telling us where we stand with our finances.
Yep.
And that will determine our next steps, because if you have to move money from your operating account that affects turnout gear, no, you can't do that. There's no way you can. We need to purchase turnout gear. We need to replace SCBA bottles that are coming out of hydro test dates. There's things like that that are part of my budget that I submit to you every fall that cannot be touched. The money that I save from inspection, that we're gonna put into, because now when you take firefighter one, if they can't read the label in your boots, you need to replace the boots. So those are things that never really were on the 10-year cycle that really were paid attention to. So we've got to start replacing helmets and boots that were not part of what I budgeted for from turnout gear. So at a minimum, if your found money touches anything from my budget, that's where we're gonna have to really have a conversation, because we can't.
I don't think any of us on the board want to touch anything that affects firefighter safety or our functions.
And then once we
Is it
have-
my turn now? When can we expect to get the February statement so we can review it?
February state. Oh, you mean the
Treasurer's
check?
report. Is it on the website?
It is.
Check the website, that's the last place I saw it. So on the website, under treasurer's report, it should be there. But where is, no, he didn't.
Mark didn't,
There's
put
no
it
reports
in,
from
yeah.
Mark, I can tell you that.
And I assumed like by the
Wait,
next,
let's finish with, Ulla. Do you have any?
No, that's it, because that's really where
Right.
everything should be plain and simple.
Well, I don't think the bank statements are.
those
there. I
are
think it's just
check registers
the
of
check
the
register, that's
expenses.
it.
Well, then you have a financial statement though.
They should be,
There is
And
a
it should
financial
be a
statement.
balance sheet, P&L,
Correct.
a cash flow.
correct.
Yes.
So if you can provide that, Christine?
Mhm. The financial statement was sent by the auditors too, so that is available, and that was for all of
Okay,
2023.
is it available to members?
That's up to you guys, but I certainly can make it. It can be posted. It's definitely a public record.
Yes,
All right,
so
so
post it, please.
Can you do that?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
So
On the
check
website.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll put it where I put the treasurer stuff.
Thank you.
and I assume by next meeting, you'll have a disposition on the soil contamination report and
We did get
if there's
something,
any issue,
There are 2 reports.
yeah,
who got it?
It was in the attorney's hands, but they gave me the okay today. So,
Okay, well, I'm sure at some point, like again, I spoke to Ed previous to this. This may be a non-issue, but there were some pesticides and some chemicals found when they did testing 7 years ago. I just want to make sure, once we stick a backhoe into the ground and we start digging, especially the area of the old dumping pit, that we don't have a problem. Again, that's going to be an additional cost that needs to be rectified. Now, it may not be an issue, but as I explained to Ed last time we spoke, we should know, we should be aware of the problem, and if it isn't an issue, fine, we can move on.
the last.
I can speak to that.
You did not,
Wait,
Excuse me.
you did not say
I-
it.
okay.
Gentlemen, ladies,
Hang on one second.
to you today. Lynn, go ahead.
I can speak to that. So there were soils that were removed from the property. There was testing done afterwards. And they weren't considered contaminated soils. Joe, you're on the call, Joe?
Yes.
Yes, the soils were impacted. They were not contaminated. They did not meet the levels of the DEC. So some of you were involved during the approval process with the planning board. During that process, we explained to the planning board that the district was going to remove these soils as good stewards of the environment. Technically, they were there, and what you could have done is just put a cap over them or whatever. You know, you could have just put a rubber cap over them, but you took them out, you got them away from the community and your firefighters. And that was part of the permit for the demolition of the animal hospital. So that was something that the town also tracked and made sure that it was done properly.
So that's good, there's no contaminated soil on the property next door.
That would be my understanding.
Levels as by the DEC, so we're good there.
Joe, there was a whole report on that.
Yeah, we sent that. I sent that over to Christine. She just got approval from the district attorney. Mike Gregorio to send that out.
All you'll come.
Just want to shift gears away from finances for a second to a couple other items that I've raised a number of times. The relationship with the surrounding community is extremely important. Not necessarily as important to the five of you because you're not the face of the department. You know, like it or not, myself, Mike, Greg, we're the first ones knocking on somebody's door. So they associate us with anything that goes on in this building within the district. I've asked a number of times about moving the construction entrance away from Oak Lane, putting it out on King Street. I've asked a number of times about have we started any type of community engagement because this construction is going to really impact the neighborhood. Westchester Tree Life is putting 20 to 25 cars on Elm Street. You're going to have construction workers' vehicles. You're going to have schools starting in the fall for Oak Lane and for Memorial Drive. You know, the buses going back and forth to Grafflin. You know, it's time to really start knocking on people's doors and saying, look, this is coming. We want to share with you, create a one-pager, quick facts. Who should they call if they've got a complaint or a problem? You know, we don't want everybody knocking on Owen's door saying, hey, your construction's causing problems, which you know is going to happen. You know, that's not fair to him. How is this going to impact Westchester Tree Life's movement of their apparatus in the mornings? They leave the same time construction vehicles will be coming in to start the day. You know, there's a lot of impact that's going to be occurring around this small piece of land. And while I appreciate we've engaged with Mr. Carlock, that's one person.
Right.
And there's a lot more people who are impacted by this than just our immediate next door neighbor.
Do you by any chance have any list that you would share with the board?
I have the list of people who I worked with when we were working with the signer, but that's primarily Revort Road. What you can also do too, and Charles has done this for the fund drive, you can go to town hall and get a mailing list of labels, or you can get it electronically and you can print out a letter. You don't have to spend a lot of money doing it, but come up with some questions and answers. I think primarily, who should they call when they have a question or a complaint? Is it going to be, you know, Kevin's team? Is it going to be one of you? Who are they going to want to speak with? And I think being upfront and getting it out there before the backhoes show up, before we start blowing through the driveway in the back. I think those are things that really need to be done. How is it going to affect Sammy Car Wash? You know, is there any impetus there? Also, too, you're going to be moving, or the state's going to be insisting on the sidewalk out here. Is that going to overlap at all with the construction work that's being done here, where our driveway is going to be impeded, our driveway on the other side is going to be shut down, and we're just going to have a one lane coming in from Memorial Drive? All things that I think you really need to factor in from a relationship with the neighborhood perspective.
Wise move. Yeah, Kevin and Pete and Joe, I wonder, not Joe, Joe, and Bob, what is the time frame for building out the sidewalk? That's gonna be at the end. I just wanted to hear.
Well, we don't know that yet. We have it slotted for the end because we've been dealing with the permitting issues. We are very close to that permitting being done. We didn't know when it was going to fall in the whole process. So it'll fall on the contractor to decide when that will be done.
Yeah, we're gonna hold it off.
And in terms of the, you know, the other neighbors, there were several neighbors that came out during the approval process with the planning board. They were informed, we answered their questions, we put them at ease, we did whatever, you know, was requested of them and or the board, or of them as directed by the board, because we don't take direction from the neighbors, we take direction from the board during the approval process. However, if a neighbor raises a question, the board can say, address that issue, which is why you've heard a lot about our discussions with Mr. Carlock. Again, we did have a lot of conversations with the daycare center as well. The contractors have all been made aware that that is an operating daycare center and that special attention is going to be needed. The driveway that comes in from the back of the building and is proposed to go out to Memorial Drive is to be constructed at least partially or temporarily at the early stages of the project, because you can't have a dead end drive in there. You got to have a way to get out. That's a
No, Joe,
one-way.
My concern has long been the construction entrance to the site is off of Memorial Drive at the end of the cul-de-sac, basically the end by Mr. Carlock's property.
Understood.
And the amount of traffic on that road of people picking up the children from daycare. And I respectfully disagree with the perspective, and this is why I'm speaking to the board about the community relations. The project team is one thing, they've got their mandate, they know what needs to be done, they know what they can, yeah, don't worry about it, Mr. Neighbor, we'll take care of it. You are have to get in front of it with the public, because I am not going to go through what I went through for the 2 bond referendums that failed and the lambasting we took on social media. I've spent the last 6 years, along with Russell, along with Mike and Greg, rebuilding the relationships with this neighborhood. And we're not gonna let it be torn apart. There's a specific reason we were differentiating between the fire district and the fire department for just that reason.
Understood. I think what I'd like to do, and I will pass it by you for review before we do anything. I think we're gonna get the board to put our heads together and create a letter that we can use to publicize what we're doing, an approximate time frame, not to the date. Letter to the public, we'll put it on the website, and we'll maybe have an outreach. If you have any names or addresses that we can mail, we'll go to the town like you suggested, get the appropriate area of concern, and we'll try and canvass the whole area with, or plaster the whole area with mailings of some sort. So we'll try and get that out in the next couple of weeks so that it's well before any construction starts.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember several years ago, we had a CLC Community Liaison Committee? Maybe we had a dozen people from all about. They gave their input on what this project would be and how it would affect them, et cetera, et cetera. If we still have the mailing list from the CLC, why don't we send something out to them so they can be advised and they could pass it on to all the people they know?
That's another path.
Yeah.
Okay. So one more thing related to that is, you know, some of that is some of that construction activity, whatever, is shown on the plans conceptually, because the way it is done is really means and methods for the contractor. And every contractor would have their way of doing it. So we lock them into certain things, you know, certain, you know, elements of it, but not specifically. So they are supposed to provide, whichever contractor is retained or awarded the contract, are supposed to provide phasing plans for the project. And Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong. It's important to have that contractor awarded, have those phasing plans in place so that, you know, maybe even the contractor can be part of that discussion with these neighbors at some point. The initial discussion is, hey, we're looking to get started. We haven't or have hired a contractor yet. But we don't have a phasing plan yet. As we get into that, you know, we'll share it with you and look for comments or discussions. And then there will be, you know, points of contact, which would probably be Kevin or his guy in the field that's in the field every day. And if nothing else, there's always the building department, which we all don't want.
This has been brought up since January on numerous occasions, Brian, and nothing's been done.
Again, you need to have the contractor in place in order to let them show what they're going to do so anybody can comment on it. If you don't have a contractor, you don't have a phasing plan.
He's right.
All right, let's just.
Period.
Past was the past. We're in a different juncture right now with communication, and let's hope it continues.
And yes, my staff will also be in touch with the surrounding people and visit them regularly if need be. We're gonna have chats. We have to have these conversations.
I mean, we have win by a
The town
landslide.
requires some of it.
There's people who are still not pleased with the whole concept, so.
So, yeah, I mean, you can't please everybody,
Correct.
but you can notified.
Exactly.
And the best way to keep people calm is communication. And so we're going to try that while we are.
Thanks.
And the board needs to communicate, Kevin, as well as you. And that hasn't happened.
Kevin, do you have any other comments you'd like to make before we? change topic?
The only other thing that I just want to mention, because we have had a lot of conversations about a lot of things. Is that when you decide to if you decide to award contracts, there is one of the contract that I'd like the board to consider, and that is for the controlled inspection company. We went out to send an RFP out. We had 5 consultants respond to the RFP. We did an analysis of the 5. We had this internal discussion with and came up with a contractor who has a lot of firehouse experience and has done work in the area and worked with both the architect and Triton. So that's part of our recommendation also, is the award of that controlled inspection company when and if you decide to award.
At what phase do we need to do that? I mean, is it hired at?
I'd like to do it at the same time.
Okay.
We're going to have to submit all that application to the town also. They need to know who's making these third-party inspections, and we have to send information from the actual physical tests that are done here to them.
What's it cost them?
You took the words out of my mouth.
I think isn't it per,
Yeah,
inspection?
so how it's broken down is there are different types of tests and inspections that are done. We've asked them to provide a unit price per half-day service and full-day service. And then what we did was, we also asked them to include all their travel costs and everything into their units. Then we compared all the bids side by side with these individual costs. So ballpark is probably in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $60,000.
50 to 60.
Yep, it could be more depending on what we find, or if there's additional testing that has to be done for whatever reason. But that's gonna be, and we have that set aside in the budget.
That was, you set aside 55,000, right? For that?
Good question. We set aside, yes,
And it was.
$55,000
Right, so I
set
said
aside in the soft cost of the budget.
I just have one more question, and this, I think, Dwight and Ed should be able to answer, is that we had one bidder for the sprinkler system, SRI. And I found that to be, there's a lot of sprinkler companies out there, why do you only get one? I know you said their price came in within range. I don't know what range is, so we have an expert, ex-chief here in the field. And Dwight, you and Ed would have called him and let us know what the feedback was. I didn't hear anything back.
I did send you an email saying that, I
I
sent you a quote.
Right.
I sent you Al's, I reached out to Al and asked him what his feeling was for this company.
Mhm.
And I take a look in the email, it's in there somewhere.
You could resend it, because honestly, I didn't get out
Happy.
looking for it.
So anyway, Al had essentially said that he doesn't know this company, but they may have changed names over the years.
Mhm.
But he was also surprised that there was just the one bidder. But,
Was it
As long
surprised
as-
at the cost?
no, he wasn't surprised at the cost. He was surprised at just one bidder.
Right, 'cause I asked that because there was no competition,
Yeah.
in other words.
Yeah,
So,
the only information that I could give you is that we provided an estimate of the drawings.
Uh-huh.
And we looked at it as if we were a bidding contractor for each one of the individual contracts. And the sprinkler numbers that we had come up with was slightly above the number that came in from SRI. So that was the first thing that we thought that was very good. Second thing is that we, Triton and also Wendell, have worked with SRI on public works projects, both firehouses and school districts over the past 15 years with tremendous success. So I was encouraged to see that they bid this project and was also within the range that we felt was acceptable
Okay,
from our estimates. Again, I agree with you. I would have loved to have seen more bidders bid. Don't know why they didn't. Well, I have some ideas of why they didn't, but it's just the timing in the market is sometimes complex.
Mhm.
And I think that there might have been other projects that sprinkler companies might have been more focused on at the minute. But I don't know that for sure.
No, that's fine. I'm just glad the chairman reached out just to get an opinion. So, we have a little more education on it. So thank you. If you could send it.
Yeah, I would not have made the recommendation to this board or your group or your community if I didn't think that they were the right fit for the right process.
To keep in mind, you said that there was no competition. SRI didn't know they're the only bidder. They inserted it, they sent it a bid. They thought they were in competition.
No, there was no other price to compare it against, is what I was saying. So I didn't know whether their amount was good, was better than somebody else's. So without something else to compare their price to, I personally didn't have anything else to go on. So that's why I asked.
It's a valid question.
Sure.
Joe.
Why didn't they rebid it then?
Well, I asked for that, Joe.
Yeah,
But
and do it over again. I mean, like, you need a competitive bid, have 3 bidders, right? Competitive? If you
No, it's not a legal requirement to have 3 bidders.
It's not, right, it's not a legal requirement if you're talking about the way the public bidding process works. It goes out to the bidding public, and by its very nature of its bidding, if you get 1 bid, if you get 2 bid, if you get 17 bids, it doesn't matter the number of bidders. It only matters whether or not you're comfortable working with that low bidder and if the price is right.
Another thing I'd like to point out is that
Again, you can choose to rebid if you want to, but I don't think it's necessary.
Who sets that guidelines? Is it the county, the state? Whose guidelines are those? Meaning that, okay, you can accept 1 bid and, okay, that's all we're gonna get and we'll go with that. In New York City, we do that. In the city, if you got 1 bid on a contract, they would rebid it again. They would just keep rebidding until they got minimum 3. So why aren't we doing the same, like keeping that same standard?
Well, first off, across the entire country, there's a problem with the number of people willing to do contracting work. And there's a shortage of bidders everywhere. So that's 1. 2, you're not legally required, with the fact that New York City has a policy about it, you're not legally required. 3, would you even consider issuing the contracts for the other 4 contracts and not have the sprinkler? 4, if you don't come to closure on this and it has to go back out to bid, some of the bidders are just not going to bother bidding because they're going to view this as a bad project.
How much of the sprinklers are we required?
About 250 grand.
Oh, yeah.
In the overall scheme of the project, it's not a large number.
Yeah.
But it's $250,000.
Kevin, would you say you sent your bid request RFP to a robust list of people that would potentially see it?
Yeah, well, it's sent out through a document center. It's how it's all done now. And then document center picks up other document centers throughout the state of New York. So the information was out there from one end of New York State to the other, that the bids were available.
So was that on general services? Was that on OGS?
It was not picked up by OGS, but it was picked up by Dodge. It was picked up by
Right,
CDN.
those are private publications. Why wasn't it put through OGS? I'm curious.
It's not typical that we put them through OGS.
Okay.
It's OGS may not necessarily have the contractors on it that are specific to your firehouse construction.
New York State has a lot of firehouses.
So,
I mean, like throughout the whole state. So like,
yeah,
we could have gotten lucky and gotten a contractor that did a good job in, I don't know, Niagara Falls and.
Yeah.
Hey, look,
I'm sorry. I want to react to that. I want to react to that. The OGS has, and I've been doing this now for 30 years. OGS has not had anything to do with any fire station that I've been involved with, or any fire station I've ever heard of. The OGS covers, the fire stations are owned by fire districts and fire departments and villages and towns. So OGS doesn't get involved with that.
I understand that, but it's still public money, so it has to have the same requirements, prevailing wage, certain standards.
it does.
Sure, it does.
We're dealing with public money, it has to go out for a public bid and it should be
That's correct.
broadcasted so that everyone has an opportunity to bid on it. And the benefit of doing so is that we have a lower price and we're never over budget. If we keep it to a small scope, that budget's gonna go up. That price is gonna be inflated.
But what are you gonna do?
I'm just not satisfied with having just one sprinkler, even though it's 200,000.
But
If-
there's nothing you can do about it. That's the only party that bothered to bid on it. It's, part of the problem might be that it's only a small dollar value. And the sprinkler contractors were busy doing bigger, more profitable buildings.
That could buy this later on. I just so that you know, that could
Well-
meaning it doesn't create a competitive bid. And if someone can come up with a reason to start an investigation on why it wasn't forecasted wide enough, they would have a reason.
In my opinion, you're worrying about something that doesn't exist.
Okay, so with all this extra money now, are we gonna be able to sprinkle this building?
That's not part of the scope.
Joe, I just want to let you know, I did ask to have it rebid, and the answer was, we're good with what we have. Just.
Yeah.
Just put it all out there on the table so everybody knows we did, I did ask.
So we also asked to sprinkle this building. And these are the money, that was well.
Let's talk about
That's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Bill, I'm sorry, Bob and Pete, do you guys have anything, or Joe or Lynn, anything else?
No, the only thing I want to say is good night.
And the
Good
only
night,
thing I
everyone.
want to say is please confirm I'm not needed for the 15th. I don't think I am, but I want to make sure.
Yeah, same with me. I am gonna
At
be
this point, I
away.
don't think so.
At
Joe,
mine.
thank you. If we have any questions,
I won't be available either.
okay, if we have questions, what we'll end up doing is sending emails, all right?
Yes, I would appreciate it if you have questions, if you would email them to us so we can have the proper images available to show on the screen to simplify the explanation rather than digging around through all the data files in the midst of the meeting, because that's to answer a question we weren't anticipating.
I guess we'll do our best to anticipate the questions and get them to you.
Yeah.
Do our best.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Well, I guess initially what Bob is asking for is confirmation of the absolute topics that need to be covered on Monday first.
Yeah.
So somebody put it in writing and send it to Bob and the rest of the team so that we can help Bob if we need to, but at least then there's preparation for the meeting. Correct, Bob?
That's right. That's right. We have lots of images, drawings, photos of similar installations, et cetera, et cetera. If I have some idea what wants to be understood, we can provide visual materials to make it easy to understand.
Yeah, Bob, I don't think it's necessarily an issue with regards to the plans and what the physical construction is. The big issues that we were raising were things along the lines of financials. Where
Okay.
from the
Right.
what, and
Okay.
we're going to be speccing out equipment that's part of that 285,000. Well, then let us know what you need specced, and then we can start giving you our input with regards to what we need from the cascade and things such as that.
That sounds fine. So let's start with the equipment schedule and then get that over with at that meeting.
Just one thing, Paul, we don't need all the money up front. Like, we just got like $3 million from the town.
And I completely get that.
You get that.
I
And
just-
also Center Street, I think Nancy got a quote of one.
I completely get that.
So we don't need it all up front.
I have been raised to live within my means. So
Me
if I
too.
see where the money is, and I understand where the money is, and I spec'd out and said, great, guess what, that 285, we're only gonna spend 100,000 of it, then I feel that I've done my due diligence so that I can say, I support this, I understand where everything is right now. I'm still up in the clouds with regards to where money is, what we can afford, and what I can support or not. So that's what I'm hoping next Monday brings, and then we're able to move forward.
Yeah, we appreciate all your comments. Sure.
It's hard to tell sometimes because the crickets that I hear when I send a note.
I appreciate.
And-
what you have to say.
I don't want to tie up the project folks, so I mean, they could definitely disconnect, but I would implore the board, when there's communication, please respond. Even if you tell me to go pound sand, I would like to understand that I'm taking the time to communicate with you. And whether it's a matter of giving Christine the authority to respond and say, yes, we've received it, the board will discuss at their next meeting, or this is inappropriate, but just some type of acknowledgement, saying, we've got your note, we'd like to move forward with it, whatever it might be. When any of you send me a note, ask me a question, you get an answer much sooner than within 24 hours. I send stuff to you guys and it's in paperwork. Okay.
Okay. So gentlemen, if you don't mind, I'm going to say goodnight and see you next Monday.
Okay,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Night all.
Do you have anything you wanted to say before you sign off?
Who, me? No, somebody else. No, sorry.
Actually, Dwight, I don't know if this is the appropriate time now, but you have the resolution for the sidewalk donation. I didn't know if that was the next order of business. I just wanted to remind you about that.
Right here in my hot little fists.
Okay.
All right, so Caitlin, did you have anything you wanted to comment on before we let you go to the booze?
I was just gonna say that I can, we'll just make sure that you guys have links to the equipment schedule that you has a lot of questions about, and then also I can reach out to Christine with respect to hosting the Zoom meeting and any of that sort of coordination for next Monday as well.
Thank you very much. All right, one thing I would like to ask anybody that has questions that want to be brought up for next week so that we can have a nice list to give to Bob in advance, Bob and Pete. If you could CC them or send them to the board, bofc@ncfd1.org, that would help so we can combine them into one list and get them sent off maybe Saturday or Friday, the day before, 2 days before we have a meeting. That would be a big help, I think, for Bob and Pete.
And I would just ask, I know Ms. Whining is not available, but if she could provide the board with the information regarding the parameters for the permissive referendum.
I think that's going to be a Mike issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna talk to Mike and see if he's available for Monday. He's really the district's counsel. I sort of pinched hit here, but I'm the special counsel in connection with the project. But moving forward, I think he'll be more effective in terms of those kind of questions.
Thank you. And the board to figure out how, but to give us, or at least even if you're not going to hand it out for conversational purposes, the schedule of where we stand financially. So we're going to understand if we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, if we've got a windfall, what this all means. And again, the caveat is that it cannot touch the operating budget for operational matters, as well as, stealing money from trucks. If we've got to make a decision to prioritize one truck over the other, the committee will take it back to discuss, but we need all the cards on the table. Sure.
And there's also a capital reserve for the vehicles, for Chiefs Court. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there are 3 capital reserves. I don't know if the board knows that there's 3. So those cannot be included, be taking money for the building. Well, here's the equipment schedule.
Oh, great. Okay,
so thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, that's like, it says responsible for the
I'll forward my link to share.
but all that would be the same section.
It's still being recorded.
Okay. Dwight, you can send that paperwork to me and drop it off at my office when it's done and we'll get it to DOT.
So folks, I believe I sent you a note, actually a whole bunch of like 8 different attachments. Did you have a chance to look at them? These are the sidewalk referendum for an easement that we have to approve before we can get, to my knowledge, get a CO for the building. I think we have to do this, otherwise we can't get certificate of occupancy. So there's a few of these things that need to be signed. We need to have a resolution, and all these things have to be done. So I'm going to ask Christine and Nancy to guide me on this, but we need a resolution approving authorization for the signing of the agreement of adjustment and release of the owner, which I guess is us, to be voted on today. And we need to send these completed things to Joe and
Lynn.
keep on track on file here, which I'm gonna ask you to
There's
please help.
nothing in the
But
file.
we can create, right? Okay, so I'm gonna rely on you heavily.
Now, I know they basically released the parcel
Yeah,
that they're using for the,
10 foot wide.
yes, right, and it wraps around. Do we still have to pay that $1 million to build it?
Well, that was my question I asked today. You didn't get back to me yet. How much does it cost to build this sidewalk? You said it was the responsibility of the district. So how much, and we're responsible not only for that, for maintaining it,
That's
for
true.
shoveling it.
Exactly.
Obviously, insurance is gonna come
Big
into
time,
play if somebody trips, falls, whatever. So I, you know,
Yeah, I don't know how much it costs to build.
Is that a mind or wrong?
I didn't they postulate some.
Because I, me,
yeah.
Yeah, we're continuing maintenance.
I thought we were throwing around $1 million along this time.
But where's that coming from?
Sounds like a lot of money for
Well,
a side.
I thought it was
Well, this is before me, but where is that money then gonna come from?
Well, thankfully, it doesn't have to come away right away. It's gonna be down the road at the end of the.
Very-
So that has to be budgeted
Yes,
annually.
now.
Hey, Dwight,
Joe is on the
Yes.
call still.
it's Joe. I'm still on the phone because I didn't know that document was part of the discussion tonight.
All
And
right,
I just wanted to make sure that you get the original signed documents to my office
Yep.
when they're done so that I can send them off to DOT
yes,
and
sir.
make copies for whoever. I
Yep.
just wanted, and I heard you say that, so that's fine. But in terms of cost, I don't know it specifically, but it's nowhere near $1 million. And it's included in the bids that you got. It's not an extra. It's included in the numbers that you have.
Not the ongoing like snow plowing maintenance.
Oh, no, maintenance is another story.
Good,
But the
okay,
construction of it is included in the bids that you got.
okay.
Joe, which contractor is responsible for that?
GC.
The GC.
Thank you.
Okay.
And it's I believe the one that was recommended is self-performing the site work. I believe, I can't say for sure, but I believe that's what I recall.
All right, thank you. So we're gonna,
Right.
Thanks, Joe.
we're gonna try and blast through this and,
I'm gonna sign off. Have a good night.
all right, thanks.
Bye, Joe.
The pieces that
Bye-bye.
need to get to Joe, we're gonna send him in pretty short order. So, I just read this partially, maybe not 100%. Resolution approving and authorizing the signing of the agreement of adjustment and release of owner to be voted on at the July 8th meeting. Please send a completed resolution to Joe Montefiore and maintain a copy of the district's records. Okay, fine. So the first article of business here is this New York State Department of Transportation Office of Real Estate Affidavit of Title. So we basically have to affirm that we're gonna do that. How do we do that? Resolve, how do we do that? I wanna make sure I don't do something, say something wrong.
Well, the board, you would authorize you to sign that
All right,
document.
So may I have a vote to continue and process this sidewalk stuff so that we are in compliance with DOT and all the permitting that we require?
Well, I just have a question. There was a resolution to, sell or give the property to the DOT.
It's an easy,
So this would be a continuance, I believe, of that resolution.
yes,
Authorizing you to sign it and file this paperwork as required by.
I think that is correct.
Correct. It was a permissive referendum that the board did last year. I mean, I can't get to it in my computer, but yes, there is
Okay, so.
Is it on?
I can't get to it right this minute. I can get to it when we're
So
off.
that's what I'm saying. There has to be a file with all of that information in there, okay? Because this obviously involves property that was given to the state.
Yes.
okay? And then there's going to be ongoing maintenance and insurance attached to it. So we can't just say, where is the stuff? Where's the paperwork? It has to be a file in there, all organized.
I would like to, in that regard, I would like to ask you for guidance and help on creating the appropriate file that you think we need going forward.
But there should be files for everything.
I don't disagree, and I've started taking papers that I've been collecting since I got on the board and think that maybe some of this stuff
All of it
should be
should
up
be
here.
all
Yeah,
of it.
absolutely.
For everybody.
Okay, so may I get a motion to go ahead and sign this and we're gonna, are you a notary?
I don't have my
All right.
I didn't bring my stamp, but I can stamp it at work
All right,
tomorrow.
so if
And
we sign it
because this,
now-
I believe, has to be FedEx. Did they give you a FedEx label?
Is there one in there?
No, there was not.
Okay.
This was actually a pre-used envelope anyway.
If not, I mean, I think they're in Armonk. I can bring it
Well,
there.
there's
It's
a-
not that big of
I
a
mean-
deal. No, I mean Joe's office.
He's an armor, yeah.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal.
So, okay, so are you allowed as a notary, either of you, to stamp it later after we sign it tonight? In our-
Yeah, because I'm witnessing you do it.
Okay, all right, so I need a motion before I can touch this.
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't here for the
Okay.
original, so I'm
Okay.
gonna abstain all the way.
All right, so it's up to you three.
Based upon what happened in the past with the sidewalk to nowhere. It was voted 4-0. I was an abstention. I will abstain from anything to do with the
And-
sidewalk to nowhere.
Okay. So it's up to you guys if we do this or not.
Well, wasn't it approved already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
You already did it, so
we
you
need,
have to.
we need a resolution,
If-
so we need we need to resolve to do that, so we need a vote to resolve to do that.
If this doesn't move forward, it basically stops the project from moving.
I think you already did it and you're gonna pay $1, correct?
I didn't see that part in here, but I didn't read it word for word everywhere. I'm happy to pay the $1 out of my pocket, but
Or they pay $1 for it? I
I
don't know.
think they.
They pay $1.
Yeah.
$1.
Regardless of who pays.
It was a requirement of your planning board resolution, so if
Yeah.
it doesn't move forward, you're,
So if you met
Permit.
those requirements, then you have to do this.
All right, so if nobody's.
Yeah,
willing
I'll
to do
make
it-
that motion.
All right, then I'll.
That we approve.
Okay, thank you. All right, Christine, would you log that down? Okay.
all in favor?
Yeah, is the language for a resolution in here?
Yes, Lynn gave a resolution in her documents.
Is there something we need to read? Usually there's something we have to read.
I can't get to it because I'm the recording, which is part of the
I
problem.
have an extract from minutes of special meeting of the Board of Fire Commissioners.
Yes, it's in there.
Fire-
Oh,
That's it.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
it, yep.
Okay, so if everybody's, all of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you.
3-0 to 2.
All right,
Okay,
on
got
this
it.
Eighth day, do I have to say 8th,
Yes,
or do I have to spell it out?
No, ATH.
Okay. Now, on the back side, we have to notarize it. You'll take care of this in the morning? Thank you.
Yes.
Sign here, I'm a deponent. Is that what I am?
Mhm.
Mhm.
I've been called a lot of things, but for a deponent.
It's a first for everything.
Yeah, first of everything, right? All right, so I'm gonna pass this over to you for copying purposes and safe storage.
Thank you.
Okay, so now here is what appears to be minutes of a special meeting of the Board of Fire Commissioners of the Town of Newcastle Fire District #1 at as it says at, I don't know. A meeting of the Board of Fire Commission, Newcastle Fire District #1 in Newcastle, Westchester County, New York, is held at District Fire House located at 491, blah, 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 Fire District. Does that make it illegal if I go blah, blah, blah?
No, you don't have to read it. You just say as set forth in the record.
At 8:12, thank you. So I'm gonna write 8:12 PM. There were present, me and all commissioners. Okay, would you want me to write this in my scribble scrabble, or you want to type it in? How do you want to do it?
No, because you're just approving the resolution in form in front of you.
The commissioners is blank. It just has.
That's okay.
What do you want me to do? Sign it or write it?
You're not even doing anything on there. This is the piece that's most important.
But I have to do commissioner this and second.
You don't have, that's just for me to have in the minutes.
But it says also sign. doesn't it?
No,
Mm-mm.
that I think came up from your.
Oh, I had to change these out because they were all sticky. They were
Yes, that's
sticking
what you
from
did.
previous.
You messed it up.
Is that one
So
sticky?
you need a motion and a
A
second.
motion and a second, which we have.
All right.
So then, so you've approved this resolution based on, and this was authorizing you to sign.
Now, what about
This is-
this?
that's
This is the
fine.
same thing.
It's a copy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, one goes to Mike, one goes to us. Okay, so now
Well,
we have an agreement. of
I'm gonna
adjustment.
fill in the blanks
Fill in
and
the
distribute
blank.
it.
And
That's all that has to
copies.
happen.
Before you mail it off, would you send us a scan of it so that we have copies of the scanned document?
Yep.
On file?
Mhm.
Okay, now we have an agreement of adjustment and release of owner. And it says date and initial, and then sign and date and notarize. And we have 4 copies of that. So do I do it on all 4? I sign all 4 copies, right? Okay, did I need to sign anywhere of that on that last one?
No.
No.
All right, so this.
This is just a Word doc where I'll fill in the blanks.
Day of July 2024, blah, 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 please initial. I'm gonna leave the stickies on just so you can see that. I did
That's
what
fine.
I'm supposed to do here. Today is the 8th.
Chairman Christie. And notary sign here. What am I signing away, my life?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
See when you come. My neighbor got a doll, my neighbor got a charger. I'm not sure what model it is, but it's sitting in the driveway, can't even see it by its door. But I told you. This is the last year they're making. Is that right?
This is officially transferring the property from the district to the DOT. It needs to be filed in the county clerk, so.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, I spoke to Josh Herman today. And he said that those houses up there, we're probably gonna take in. When all 91 units are occupied. About an extra 57,000. And he says it's probably gonna go up.
Taxes per unit?
No.
What does that mean?
Extra money coming to the district
Oh, to us.
based on their assessed value.
He said it's gonna go up. He
Well,
says
that
it,
too was sold.
you can probably expect that to double.
Of the ones that are built,
Oh, yeah, those are selling, like, they're going
yeah.
from 1.2 to 1.8.
You know what would be fun to see a train station up there, so people don't have to come into the train station.
No problem.
Yeah,
The
but it
bus.
would be kind of interesting to see if they had a train station stop there someday.
Yeah, that was talking about that years
There's
ago.
talking about a bridge going over it too.
Yeah.
Should we end the meeting?
Yeah, what else do you have to talk about? Okay. Treasurer, what do you want to talk about that real quick?
I think you need to.
Kind of thing. Okay, Charlie, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I spoke to Paula while we were at a fire call one time, and she said.
Remember, you're being recorded, so just maybe
Maybe
speak
it should
generically.
be, to adjourn into executive session
All right,
to
can
discuss
we,
personnel matter.
Can we adjourn to executive session? May I have a motion to do
Make a
that?
motion.
Second, second, okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
All right, we are in the executive session.